Sech Avoda zara, Daf Memvav Amud Aleph, 8 lines in the top, starting with the words Tani Tana Kabed Rav Sheshes. We learned before anything that's Mechubla Karka is mutter, even if those that serve as something that's Mechubla Karka is mutter ba'ana. Tani Kabed Rav Sheshes, there was a Chacham that learned the Braisa, the following Braisa before Rav Sheshes. A guy that serves mountains or hills, hey, in the mountains and the hills, mutarim are mutbana. Like then, those that serve it are chayv misvish l'sayiv with a sword. Like any goy that serves Avoda zara, a yid that serves Avoda zara is beskila. Is as hayirachis and these plantations and the seeds and the vegetables, hey, the zoyim and the yirachis asurim are forbidden. Ana, those that serve it, because that's with the intervention of man. Man planted it. It's not natural. And so therefore, the Zayim and the Iraq is also. And those that serve it, Chayiv Misayev, a guy that serves it, he's going to be Chayiv Misayev. Amalei, Rav said to that Chacham, who's the Tana that says this din? Like whom was it? Like who's Shita? Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda. Follows the Shita, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda, that he says, Ilon Shem Torah. A tree that was planted and did without the intention of serving it, and at the end he served it. The din is it's asvana, even though he didn't plant it lechatchila l'shem avoda zara. That's why the Zayin and the Iraqis, even though he planted it without the kavana for avoda zara, it's still going to be aser because it has the intervention of man, which follows the shita Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that even if the chatchila planted without the kavanah of serving it, the din is that it's going to be asvana. What makes you say that it's talking about that he planted it without the kavanah of serving it? Only later he served it, and only follows the shita of Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda, who holds in that case that it's going to be asvana. But according to Abban, in such a case where he planted lechatchila without the kavanah of serving it, it's mutabana, therefore we cannot follow the Abana and say that the Mishnah, the Braisa is talking about that he planted the tree to begin with to serve it as an idol. The Rabbanan, and he could even go follow according to Shita Rabbanan, will hold that if somebody that will be asbana because of the chatchila when he planted it was with the kavanah of serving it idols. So you want to look at that, but it shouldn't enter your mind that was the pshat of the Braisa, that he planted the lechatchila with the kavanah of serving it. The Ketani do me the harm because the Braisa learns this din of Zoyim and Yerakis equally to the mountain and Mahar, and just like the mountain, the mountain is a case where he didn't plant it there to begin with l'shem avoda zara. So too here by the Zoyim Yerakis has to be talking about it in a similar fashion that he didn't lechatchila plant it for the kavanah of serving it. That he didn't plant it to begin with to serve it as an idol. And therefore we concluded, since we're talking about it wasn't chatchila with the kavanah of serving it as an idol, the only reason why it's going to be asbana because we follow the shita of Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda, who says that even if chatchila you didn't plant it with the kavanah of serving it as an idol, and then he serves it as an idol, it's going to be asbana. Itma, we learned Amachliks in the base medrash Avnei Hash and Dalilu, the stones of a mountain that fell off the mountain. Of course, we're not talking about that the person took it out of the mountain, because then you have intervention of man. Here we're talking about it fell off the mountain. And here we're talking, and after it fell off the mountain, he moved it around. So the children of Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yechon argue. Chad Amar Asuris. One of them say that it's Asura Bahana because since it was detached from the mountain, so it has a din like any Davar Tolish, any detached item, and which will be Asur. Chadam Mutaris. And one says it's Asur Bahana since it it's going to be Mutaris since there was no intervention of man over here. Therefore, it's going to be Asur. About what's the reason of the person who says it's going to be mutter? Says just like a mountain, mahar, just like a mountain. she'ein bo tvis yidei adam, where it doesn't have in the intervention of the hands of a person, umuta, and by a mountain we said it's muta ba'no even if he bowed to it, avhanis, and so too by the stones that were detached on its own, she'ein bo tvis yidei adam umuta, where it didn't have intervention of man's hand, it's going to be muta. So the Gemara asked on this, how could you compare it to the mountain? A mountain is connected to a karka, and because of that, it doesn't become asa. Stones that were detached are not in its original state. So do you want a behemoth? I can prove to you by behemoth that somebody who serves a behemoth which is detached. And we say it's usher. Of course, the person who served is chayiv, but the din is that the behemoth itself that was served as Avoda zara doesn't become asavana in itself, doesn't become asavana. So we can learn out from behemoth that even stones which are detached shouldn't become asa through serving it as an idol. It should be the chefza itself should be muta. Mal behemoth says you can't compare to behemoth. Shekein balas chayim. It has its special chashidus importance that it's a live thing. And therefore it doesn't become us. Mashen can avodim stones which are not balei chayim. I'll say it doesn't have that chashidus. So therefore it will become us mana. So the Gemara answered, that the reason of the het by behemoth is not because it's a balchai, because you see a mountain, as long as it wasn't, and those stones were detached, you say it's mutter. So even though it's not a balchai, it doesn't have the chshivas, the importance of life, nevertheless we say it's mutter ba'anoah. So you can't say that the life in the behemoth makes it aser versus a stone not, because a mountain is not aser ba'anoah, a chazadin. And then we go back and forth, that the tchuna of a mountain is not like the tchuna of behemoth, and the tchuna of behemoth is not like the tchuna of a mountain. A mountain which is mechubel karka and it's not about chai, and a behemoth which is about chai and it's not mechubel karka. So you see that the only thing that the only part that they both have in common is that anything that doesn't have a mountain and a behemoth, what do they have in common that we say that it's going to be mutar ba'anoah is because they don't have intervention of man's hand, even if they bow to it. And that's why that's going to be mutar. So we learn out everything else that doesn't have intervention of man's hand is going to be mutar. You can ask, but by the mountain and the behemoth, they're different than a stone that was dislodged from the mountain because it didn't change from its original state. Says we learn out the behemoth by the smum. We learn out from a case of a behemoth that developed a blemish, that it becomes so it doesn't become asa by bowing to it, and it's not in its original state. You learn out from the mountain, together with the mountain. So you're going to ask, the mountain hasn't changed from the original state, and that's why it's mutar ba'anoah. Behemoth did it change? Behemoth will prove it that it did change from its original state, and even if it was served, it's still going to be mutar ba'anoah. So I could say the stone also that was dislodged from the mountain should be mutar ba'anoah, because even though it changed from its original state, it's like behemoth. It would serve as long as there wasn't an intervention of man's hand. It should be mutar ba'anoah. Nami, and we could also learn out by behemoth tunnel. We can learn from the tzad hashava of a behemoth that's complete and a dried up tree. That the tzad hashava is that they don't have the intervention of man's hand. So too, anything that doesn't have the intervention of man's hand should be mutar ba'anoah. And are you going to say it didn't change from its original state? A dried up tree did change from its original state, and even though, nevertheless, we say it's not asa. And according to the one that asas these stones, so first of all, according to Rabbana Chachamim, who hold that a tree that was planted with its seeds is not in the original state, because at the end, when he served it, it wasn't a grown tree. Or you can even learn according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, you can explain, look, on what he served, only after what he served the tree, whatever grows after it, he's chayiv. He's going to be chayiv for. But over here, nothing grew after he was served as Avoda zara. Therefore, it's going to be mutar ba'ana. Man the aser, and according to the one that asks these stones, lahachik. This is the why it says in the Torah, Avoda zara shakis to shakisenu, esat to sa'avenu. It says you should disgust it, hate it, anything that was served as Avoda zara. Why does it say a double lashon, a double lashon? To tell you, even though there's ways to make drashas to be matayit, loy tasid, do not learn any drashas to be matayit. Rather, you should know, even with the drashas won't help, and it's going to be us. And you don't learn, and we don't learn the double lashon. It's telling you don't learn any drashas to be matayit, even though there are drashas that you could be matayit. So this machlekes b'negei ta'avanim that were dislodged, we said, is like the machlekes of Rabbi Yochanan and the children of Rabbi Chia, and it doesn't say who was the one that was matter, who was the one that was who asked it. Now the Gemara wants to clarify who was matter. Was it Bnei Rabbi Chia, or was it Rabbi Yochanan? The Stayim says Gemara, I'll conclude the Bnei Rabbi Chia, the Sharu. It's the children of Rabbi Chia who matter these stones and said you're allowed to have anah. The Baal Chizkiah was one of the children of Rabbi Chia. Asked the Shaila, Zakir somebody stood up on the condition to bow to it. What's the din? Is the Be'ah, does Be'ah become asbana through this or not? It's all Kedaita to begin with, and to the mind of the Bnei Beis Havench to say that Chizkiah is talking about that person who put up the egg was with the kavana l'ishtachlisla, to bow to it, and the hishtachla, and he actually bowed to it. And according to this, the suffix was hi zechifasa. This is standing up. He have a ma'isa. Is this a ma'isa chashuv? And the beya is considered like there was, when he stood it up, there was intervention of man's hand because of that, and therefore it becomes asvana when he bows to it. Or Eloi have a ma'isa, or maybe by standing it up, even though he stood it up with the kavanah to bow to it, it's not considered as an intervention of man's hand, and the bay is not going to be considered and therefore it's not going to be asa when he bows to it. But if the person wouldn't have stood up the bayah, we would have said for sure the bayah doesn't become asa because there was, and he bowed to it. Even though he bowed to it, there was no intervention of man's hands. So from here you have it. It's the Bnei Rabbi Chia who are matir, because it's marked from the diuk we make that if they would have bowed without him standing up the bayah upward, it would have been it would have been mutar. Says you want to like. The children of Rabbi Chia ask these stones because they hold any davar tolush, anything that's not connected to the ground, and it's not a balchai, becomes forbidden by bowing to it, even though there was no intervention of man. And the Yishtachah, anybody that bows to this bayah, even though he didn't stand up this bayah, Asur is going to be Yasa. Alright, what was the shot of Chiyah? Over here it's talking about he stood up the bayah to bow to it. But he didn't actually bow to it. And what's the shayla over here? So he says, Laman, and according to who did Chizkiah is the shayla? In Laman the Yamar, if he is the contrary Yishmael, the Yamar is asking, that the Yid stood it up to serve it Asura Miyad. So right when he stood up this bayah, even though he didn't serve it as Avoda zara yet, for sure Asura should be Asur right away, right when he stood it up for Avoda zara. If it goes according to Rabbi Akiva that a guy that the Yid stood up for Avoda zara, placed it up with Avoda zara, so, and he holds it's still not over until he actually serves it. But he didn't serve it. So what's the shayla over here? So what was the Chizkiah b'nei Chizkiah's shayla? Says you want to wait Only the case is talking about he put up the beya, standing it up with the condition to bout it, and he didn't bout it. And then a guy came and he bowed to it, and his suffix was, did the beya become also to the guys bowing to it, even though that you saw a guy can ask something that belongs to your soul? We'll talk about that soon. Or should we say, since the baby belongs to the Yid, I would say that the goy doesn't have the power to answer it by bowing to it. You sold that stood up a brick to bow to it, and the guy came and he bowed to it. The Levena is Asura because of the guy's bowing. So even though the Levena didn't belong to the guy, and we know, and the guy bowed to it, and we know a person cannot ask a Davashen Shalayim. Nevertheless, since the Yid stood it up in order to bow to it, so he revealed with his mind that he has the will of serving it. So you could say that this guy that served it is like the shlichus of this Yid who had l'chatchila the kavanah to serve it. And the suffix that Chizkiah was Bilavena, by a brick that a Yid put up to bow to it. Who there becomes asa when a guy bows to it. The Binker is kifasa because you could tell that he stood up this brick for the purpose of bowing, because the length of the brick is much longer than the width. So when he puts it up, it seems, you see, it's taller. So it's considered as a Maisa Chashuv. So the guy, so you see what his das was. The Yid's das was l'chatchila. He revealed openly that he wants to serve it. Aval Beya, when he stands it up, it's not really noticeable. So it's not a Maisa Chashuv like standing up a stone. So maybe there it's not going to be considered as a Gilui Das that the Yid wants to serve it as an idol. So therefore I'll say it doesn't become asa when a guy bows to it. Or perhaps there's no chilik between a brick and an egg. And therefore when a guy serves the egg, it becomes the shlichus of the Yid. Gilui Das will consider it as a Gilui Das of the Yid, and now that he wants to do it, and if a guy does it, it's as if he's doing the shlichus. And it does become asa. Take so like the shaila. Somebody, we're going back to the original case, somebody who bows to a stone, to a mountain. So we said that the mountain doesn't become usher, and you're allowed to cut out the stones and use them. Avoda mal mizbeach. What about using the stones for the mizbeach? Does it become is it mutar or asba? No. So Rabbi Nachum explains the two sides of the suffix. Yes, is there the Indian just like by hakrava al mizbeach to be makra mizbeach, something that's mechuba that was served is possible hakrava al mizbeach, like we learned in the Torah that balei chayim, that behemoth that was used, and for avodah zara, apostle to use it for being makra al mizbeach, even though it's mutar b'hana for hedget. So here also, even though the stones are mutar b'hana for hedget, maybe it shouldn't be up to be used for the mizbeach. Or we say by mechuba, you're allowed to use it, and you're allowed to bring a carbon from something that's connected, that was to the ground, that was served as idol. And if you're going to say there is an isur of using a stone towards that was served as an idol, to use it for the mizbeach as a carbon, so how about machshirei carbon? How about things that you're not being mark of them themselves, only you're using it as a machshev for the hakrobas hakarbanos, for stones, the building the mizbeach, let's say, is it similar to the carbon itself? Or we say, or perhaps we say, those machshirei hakarbon, it's not the carbon itself, it's just the building of the mizbeach. So then the isa of serving it doesn't apply to the machshirei, to those that are to the things that are a preparation for the akrava, but not for the akrava itself. Or I should say, I like that it's not similar to the covenant itself, and therefore it would be mutter to use it for building the mizbeach because that's not the akrava itself. Amar Rava said we could learn this from the Kalachim. What's the Kalachim? Ma esna ma the chazayna who got paid with animal shamut betalush lehedye. That this animal, even though it was a payment, but the hedget could have enough from it. But also, and this also b'mechuba lagavaya. But it's also even if she got something that's attached to the ground, you cannot use it for the mizbeach. Where do we see that? Because it says. So since the Torah says that one should not bring the matana of a zayna or the exchange of a dog, and then it says base Hashem elakacha. So from this that the Torah says stam and it was mechalik. So you see this iser is applicable loishna b'talish loishna b'mechuba. It does not make a difference if it was detached or attached. So the Gemara, and if so, never also b'talish lahedye, but never something that was actually served as avodah zara, which is forbidden by detached items to a hedge to have any anah from it. And by a esnan, you could have enough in it. And nevertheless, it's also for the mizbeach. So for sure it should be also, even by mechuba, something that was served as an idol, for sure should be also be mechuba l'gavaya. Because by talush, by esnan, you say it's mutabana, but it's forbidden for the mizbeach or for the Beis Hashem. So, and even mechuba is forbidden by nevad, which is not by esnan, something that was served. Something that was served as an idol, where it's the talush is asabana also for sure. Mechuba should be asabana, because by the esnan the talush is mutabana and it's also the mizbeach. So for sure, by talush by hedget, which is who serves it as an idol is asabana versus esnan is mutabana. For sure, by mechuba it should be asur for Beis Hashem. Before we can be down the Kavachim, the reverse, completely the reverse. About never also with never tolish. Ma'at something that was served as avodah zara is forbidden by the attached etzel hedjed. If it was served as avodah zara, it's asbana for the hedjed. Mutter mechuba, but it's mutter by some. If he serves a mechuba, it's mutter it's mutter lagavaya and mutvana shekenem elahim alaharim. It says only alaharim is going to be forbidden bana, but the harim itself lo yaharim elahim. But the mountains itself is not considered the avodah zara, and since it's not considered the avodah zara, therefore it can be used for the Beis Hamikdash for mizbeach loishna lahedim loishna lagavaya. It does not make a difference. The Torah didn't make a difference. It's not considered as an idol, not for the hedjit and not for gavaya. Meaning, for using it, it should be mutmana. Esnan shemot betalish lehedjit. Esnan, which is muta, even by something that's talush for the hedjit to have anah. And they didn't say, hey, muta b'mechuba gavaya. Shouldn't it be muta b'mechuba? If she got payment of mechuba, for sure it should be muta. Lugavaya. Says the Gemara, if you're going to say your marker from the Torah that Esnan is also gam mechuba because it says loisali Esnan zayda base Hashem alekacha. This pasuk Yidashin from the word base, that if it was given even something mechuba, it's forbidden to be magdashit l'shem Hashem. That's what you're learning out from base Hashem alekacha. He says, "Bahamas, I can tell you, no. Beis Hashem lechag when we violate for a different dasha, like in the Tanya, like we learned from the Braisa, that it says, "Loisavi Beis Hashem lechag." What do we learn out? Prat leparat numa Sheina ba labayis to exclude that a paraduma is not brought into the Beis Hamikdash, only it's slaughtered and burned at the Har HaZeisen. So the Gemara and the Rebbe Lezer, those are the words of Rebbe Lezer. Chum say, "L'Rabbis harikuim." It comes. What do we learn now from Beis Hashem Lekecha? That to cover the walls of the Beis Hamikdash, since it was made, is being made for the beauty of the Beis Hashem, it's forbidden to do it from the gold that was given to a zayna, to a prostitute, as payment. So that's why we needed the pasuk of Beis Hashem. So you don't learn out that the Isa of Eslan is not even by mechuba from Beis Hashem because we use it for a different drasha. Amalei Rabba, so Rabba said back to Rav Huna Breit, Rav Yeshua, no, Kamina. I said that you could dash in the Kavachema lechumra, Yat Amrit lekula, and you said you could dash in the Kavachema lekula. But we know when you have a choice of kula lechumra, the dash in the Kavachema either lekula lechumra pachinan. We learned the Kavachema lechumra. Wherever you have a choice of kula lechumra, you learn the Kavachema lekula pachinan. We don't learn the Kavachem Lekula, V'Hazah the Pesach. We know when it comes to Hazah Pesach, somebody was a Tomei Mace, the water has to be sprayed by Yom HaShlishi and by Yom HaShvi, and the seventh day fell out on Shabbos, and the next day was the Erev Pesach where he had to bring the Korban Pesach, but he couldn't spray the blood because of a Shabbos. The plea of Rabbi Akiva, if the Hazah overrides the Shabbos, if he could spray the water on him, the blood, the paraduma on him, on Shabbos, the Rebbe Lezer says Lechumra, Maduch, the shechting of a Korban Pesach, which is also because it's a Melacha Deharaisa and it overrides the Shabbos Hazah Alta for the spraying of the Parah Aduma for Tamei Meis, which is only Eis Rabbanim, for sure should override the Shabbos. Kamechayiv Leila Gabra, and as a Tetzah, he was of that. He was mechayiv the tamei to get sprayed, and he was machmer. Rabbi Lezer was machmer that he should have to get sprayed and bring the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Akiva the kula. Rabbi Akiva learned the psak la kula. Upata, and he parted the person from bringing a Korban Pesach. Ukaparach Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva learned the kavachema la kula. The Tanakh that we learned in the Mishnah. Here's Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva learned Oy Chiluf. Perhaps he learned the Kavachem in the reverse. Ma Hazah Shehi, which is also Mishum Shvus, is only a some the Rabbanan, and nevertheless we say that the Shabbos doesn't override the Shabbos. Shchita Shi Medaisa, Shchita, which is Medaisa Leikol Shekain. Of course, it shouldn't be up to override the Shabbos, even for the Tzedek of the Hakav's coming Pesach. So you see that here Rabbi Akiva tied it that we should be down this Kavachem the reverse, Paket, Lekula, even though he had a choice of learning it Lechumra.